A millionaire single father found his daughter praying for God to bring her mother back. What he discovered afterward changed their lives forever. Secrets came to light in an unexpected way, a story that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment on where you are watching from. The black Mercedes-Benz S-Class glided silently through the tree-lined streets of Beverly Hills, its headlights cutting through the darkness of a rainy Thursday in June. David Johnson adjusted the knot of his Hermes tie and sighed deeply, feeling the weight of 3 intense days of negotiations in Washington, D.C. At 42, his graying hair at the temples betrayed sleepless nights and the constant stress of running one of the largest real estate empires in Los Angeles. His once bright blue eyes now carried a coldness that had become his trademark in the boardrooms. The 3-story mansion stood imposing at the corner of Maple Drive, its geometrically perfect gardens illuminated by strategically placed spotlights. The neoclassical facade, with its marble columns and bronze details, reflected exactly what David had always sought to project: power, control, and prosperity. It was a tangible symbol of everything he had built with his own hands, each brick representing a battle won in the Los Angeles real estate market. The driver, Michael, a middle-aged black man who had worked for the family for nearly a decade, glanced in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Johnson, Miss Lily asked me to let you know that she had dinner early today. Mrs. Smith said she was quite excited, drawing in her room." David nodded distractedly, checking his emails on his phone once again. 3 investment proposals awaited his analysis. A lawsuit regarding a property in Beverly Hills required urgent attention, and the board had scheduled an extraordinary meeting to discuss expansion into the suburbs. Every detail of his business life was meticulously organized in his mind, like a chessboard where he always needed to be 3 moves ahead. "Thank you, Michael. You can take the night off. Tomorrow is Friday, and I have an early meeting at the office," David said, stepping out of the vehicle with his Italian leather briefcase. The front door opened before he even rang the bell. Mary Smith, a robust 55-year-old woman with her gray hair neatly tied in a bun and brown eyes radiating kindness, greeted him with a warm smile. Her calloused hands from work and floral apron contrasted with the elegance of the entrance hall, but she moved through the house with the authority of someone who knew every corner, every need, every secret kept within those walls. "Good evening, Mr. Johnson. How was the trip? You look thinner. You need to eat properly," she said, taking his briefcase and overcoat with maternal gestures that he no longer knew how to receive. "It was productive, Mary. Is Lily doing well? Did she eat properly?" David loosened his tie, walking toward the bar in the main room. The dark wood-paneled walls displayed paintings by contemporary American artists, while the baccarat crystal chandelier cast a golden light over the Italian designer furniture. "Yes, sir. Today she helped me make brownies for her afternoon snack. She asked when Daddy would be back about 5 times, Mary replied, discreetly observing the expression of guilt that quickly crossed David's face. "She's in her room, but she was awake not long ago." David poured himself a single malt whiskey, the amber liquid reflecting the lights of the room. Each sip was an attempt to dull the pang of remorse he felt every time he came home, after Lily had already gone to sleep. It had been this way for months, since Helena had passed away, exactly 13 months and 6 days ago. He counted the days like one counts losses, each representing another missed opportunity to be the father his daughter deserved. "I'll go up to see her," he said, heading toward the Carrara marble stairs, the steps echoing slightly under his feet. The walls of the upper corridor displayed photographs of the family in happier moments: Helena smiling at a lunch in Aspen, Lily taking her first steps in the garden, moments from a life that seemed to belong to someone else. The door to Lily's room was ajar, letting out a strip of pink light from the butterfly-shaped lamp. The room was a carefully constructed childhood universe, walls painted with clouds and rainbows, shelves filled with children's books, a dollhouse that replicated the mansion in miniature. Stuffed animals were arranged on a small armchair, like a silent audience watching the girls' dreams and play. David paused at the threshold upon hearing a whispering voice. Initially, he thought Lily was talking to a doll, playing house as she always did. But something in her melancholic tone made him pay closer attention. His daughter was kneeling by the bed, still wearing her unicorn pajamas, her small hands clasped together and her brown eyes, so similar to her mother's, closed in concentration. God, I know Mommy is in a very far place, a place where she is resting because she got very tired. The child's voice echoed softly in the room. But could you please ask her to come back just a little bit? Just to give me a goodnight kiss and tell me a story? I promise she can go back to rest. Afterward, David's heart seemed to stop for a moment. He leaned against the doorframe, feeling his legs weaken. For all these months, he had avoided deep conversations about Helena's death, believing that protecting Lily from the painful details would be the best course. He had only said that Mommy was resting in a special place, an explanation that had seemed sufficient at the time. Daddy works a lot. I know he's sad too, Lily continued, her little words cutting through the silence like sharp blades. But sometimes I'm scared to sleep alone. Mary is very nice to me. She makes brownies and tells me stories about the farm where she was born. But I wished that Mommy would come back to brush my hair in the morning and take me to school. Tears began to blur David's vision. He had become an expert at controlling emotions in business meetings, maintaining the necessary coolness to close million-dollar contracts. But he was completely disarmed in the face of his daughter's painful innocence. Each word of the child's prayer revealed how much he had failed as a father, how much his avoidance strategy had only amplified the suffering of both. "Amen," whispered Lily, making the sign of the cross as Mary had taught her. When she turned to climb into bed, her eyes met her father's at the door. For a moment, they both remained still, as if time had suspended its relentless march. "Daddy!" Lily ran toward him, throwing herself into his arms with the full force of her repressed emotions. "You're back. I was praying and asking for you to come home soon." David enveloped her in a tight hug, feeling the soft scent of children's shampoo in her curly brown hair. It was a hug that carried months of unexpressed longing, of postponed conversations, of "I'll explain later" that never came. In that moment, all his business coldness completely melted away. "I'm sorry, my princess. Daddy is here now," he murmured against her hair, knowing that these words were just the beginning of a much longer and necessary conversation they needed to have. David carried Lily to her bed, carefully tucking her between the pink, unicorn-patterned sheets. The soft light from the butterfly-shaped lamp cast dancing shadows on the walls, transforming the room into a magical refuge that starkly contrasted with the coldness of the rest of the mansion. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching his daughter's angelic face, which looked at him with a mix of joy at his arrival and curiosity about the serious expression he wore. "Lily, I need to talk to you about something very important," David began, choosing each word carefully. His fingers trembled slightly as he brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face. "About Mommy, about what happened to her." Lily's brown eyes widened, and she sat up in bed, hugging her favorite stuffed animal, a brown bear that Sarah had given her on the last birthday they spent together. The toy was worn from being hugged so much, a silent witness to the lonely nights the girl faced. "She's not just resting, right, Daddy?" Lily asked with a wisdom that transcended her 8 years. "Mary sometimes has red eyes when she talks about her, and I see you looking at her picture in the living room and getting very sad." David felt a lump in his throat. Sarah always said that Lily was a special child, with a keen perception that made her understand feelings and situations far beyond her age. It was a trait she had inherited from her mother, along with expressive eyes and a loving stubbornness. "No, my daughter, Mommy is not resting." David took a deep breath, recalling the words the child psychologist had suggested months ago in an appointment he had cancelled at the last minute. "Mommy passed away. That means she can't come home anymore, can't hug us or talk to us." Lily remained silent for a few seconds that felt eternal. Her little hands clutched the bear against her chest, and David could see her mental process, trying to assimilate this information that confirmed her worst fears. "She died like Grandma Sarah died when I was a baby?" she asked, referring to David's mother, who had passed away when Lily was only 2 years old. "Yes, just like Grandma," David confirmed, surprised by his daughter's ability to make that connection. "Sometimes people we love very much get sick, and even with all the doctors trying to help, they end up passing away. It's nobody's fault. It's something that sometimes happens." Lily began to cry silently, thick tears streaming down her rosy cheeks. David pulled her onto his lap, feeling his own chest constricting with pain. It was the first time in over a year that he allowed himself to cry in front of his daughter, that they openly shared the pain they both carried. "I knew," whispered Lily against her father's chest. "I knew she wasn't coming back. That's why I asked God to take care of her. Mary taught me that when people die, they go to a beautiful place called heaven, and there they don't feel pain anymore." "Mary is right," David murmured, stroking his daughter's hair. "And you know what else? Mommy was very happy to have you as her daughter. She loved you more than anything in the world." "More than chocolate?" Lily asked with a slight smile through her tears, remembering a joke that Sarah always made. "More than chocolate," David confirmed, managing a wet smile. "More than strawberry ice cream, more than Mary's brownies, more than all the treasures in the world." They sat in silence for a few minutes, just holding each other. David could feel his daughter's breathing gradually calming, and he himself was experiencing a relief he hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if a dam had broken, allowing repressed feelings to finally flow. "Daddy, why didn't you tell me this before?" Lily pulled back slightly to look him in the eyes. "I was afraid to ask because you always looked angry when I talked about Mommy." The question hit David like a punch in the stomach. He had thought he was protecting Lily, but in reality, he was just protecting himself from the pain of facing the reality of loss. His business strategy of avoiding problems had become a wall isolating his own daughter. "Because Daddy was very sad and confused," he admitted, choosing honesty. "When someone we love dies sometimes, we don't know how to talk about this. I thought not telling you would be easier, but I was wrong. I'm sorry, my princess." Lily nodded gravely, like a miniature adult processing a complex explanation. "Mary said that parents sometimes get lost too, that they don't have all the answers. She said, you are trying to do your best." "Mary is a very wise woman," David replied, making a mental note to thank the housekeeper for the sensitivity with which she had handled the situation. "And she's right. I'm trying to do my best. But sometimes I make mistakes. I might make mistakes again in the future, but I promise I will try to talk to you about the important things. Can I ask a question?" Lily hesitated, biting her lower lip as she always did when she was nervous. "You can ask any question you want," David encouraged. Did she suffer a lot when she died?" The question came out in a whisper loaded with concern. David closed his eyes for a moment, remembering Sarah's last days in the hospital. The ovarian cancer had been discovered too late, and the last months were a brutal battle against an unrelenting disease. But Sarah had insisted on keeping Lily away from the hospital in the last weeks, wanting her daughter to hold on to happy memories of her. In her last days, Mommy slept a lot because of the medication the doctors gave her to ease the pain, David explained carefully. She was at peace, and one of the last things she asked me was to take very good care of you and to tell you that she loved you very much. Did she say anything else? Lily asked, eager for any fragment of connection with her lost mother. David hesitated. Sarah had whispered many things in her last days, some about Lily, others about family secrets he still hadn't fully processed. She had mentioned letters, talked about someone named Anna, murmured about things she wanted to tell, but time didn't allow. She said you were the most beautiful thing she had ever created in her life. David chose a truth he knew would be comforting, and that she wanted you to always be brave and kind, just like she knew you were. Lily smiled for the first time since the beginning of the conversation. Can I see her pictures in your room? Sometimes I forget what her smile looked like. Of course you can. And you know what else? Tomorrow we can spend the whole day together. No work, no meetings. We can do anything you want, David promised, surprising himself with the spontaneity of the offer. Really? Can we go to Villa Lobos Park and ride a paddle boat and then eat sandwiches at that cafe Mommy liked? Lily's eyes sparkled with genuine excitement. We can do all that and much more, David confirmed, kissing his daughter's forehead. Now you need to sleep. Tomorrow will be a special day for both of us. As Lily snuggled back under the sheets, David stayed by her side until he was sure she had fallen asleep. He watched his daughter's peaceful little face, illuminated by the soft light of the lamp, and for the first time in months, he felt that maybe he could learn to be the father Lily deserved. When he went downstairs, he found Mary in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the next day. She looked up when she saw him enter, and without saying a word, she served him a cup of chamomile tea. Thank you, Mary, for everything, David said, and in those simple words, there was a deep acknowledgement of the crucial role she had played in Lily's life during his months of emotional absence. She's a special girl, Dr. David, just like Mrs. Sarah was, Mary replied softly. Sometimes she sits here in the kitchen with me and talks about how much she misses her. I tell her stories from my childhood in Virginia, but I know what she really wants is to have her father around. David nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and also a spark of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. Saturday dawned with a timid sun breaking through the grey clouds covering New York, creating a contrast of light and shadow over the waking city. David woke up earlier than usual, without the blaring alarm that usually jolted him from sleep, for another day of endless meetings. For the first time in months, he had slept deeply, as if the conversation from the night before had lifted a weight he had been carrying on his shoulders. Lily was already awake when he knocked on her bedroom door, sitting on the bed with a storybook in her lap, still in her pajamas but with a radiant smile that lit up the whole room. Her curly hair was tousled from sleep, creating a golden halo around her face that painfully reminded him of Sarah on lazy Sunday mornings. "Good morning, Daddy. Did you remember our promise?" she asked, jumping out of bed and running to hug him. Her bare feet made a soft patter on the wooden floor, and David realized how much she had grown in the past few months. Her legs were longer, her face losing some of its childish roundness. "How could I forget? Today is our special day," David replied, lifting her into his arms and spinning her around the room, eliciting crystal-clear laughter that echoed through the house like music long forgotten. Mary appeared at the door with an approving smile, carrying a tray with a special breakfast. Fresh sugar bread, homemade strawberry jam, freshly squeezed orange juice, and hot chocolate with marshmallows, Lily's favorite. "I thought you two could have breakfast in the garden today," she suggested, her eyes shining with maternal joy. "The day is beautiful, and the gourmet area table is set with a red checkered tablecloth, just like those picnics Mrs. Sarah used to organize." The mansion's garden was a carefully orchestrated spectacle. In the landscaped garden, white and red roses shared space with blue hydrangeas, while a small ornamental pond reflected the sunlight among its golden fish. The cast-iron table was positioned under a pergola covered with jasmine, creating a fragrant refuge where father and daughter settled for the most important breakfast they had shared in months. "Daddy, can I tell you a secret?" Lily asked between a bite of bread with jam and a sip of hot chocolate, leaving a frothy mustache on her upper lip. "Of course, Princess. Any secret you want," David replied, noticing an unusual seriousness in his daughter's tone. Lily looked around, as if she wanted to make sure they weren't being watched, then leaned closer to her father. "I found some letters from Mommy, hidden in the attic. They were in a pretty box, inside an old wardrobe up there." David's heart raced instantly. The attic was a place he had avoided since Sarah's death. There were her things stored that he hadn't had the courage to donate or throw away. Clothes still carrying her scent, books with notes in the margins, personal items that were silent witnesses to a life cut short. "What kind of letters, Lily?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm, while a storm of emotions brewed in his chest. "Letters with my name on the outside. One for when I turned 9, another for when I turned 10, and more with bigger numbers. I didn't open any because Mary always said we shouldn't mess with things that aren't ours," Lily explained, nervously fiddling with the handle of her cup. "But I was thinking, if it has my name, maybe they are mine, right?" David felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Sarah had mentioned something about letters in her last days, but he had been so consumed by the pain and despair of watching her fade away that he hadn't paid proper attention to her words. Now, the actual existence of these letters represented a tangible connection to Sarah that he hadn't even known existed. "Can you show me where you found those letters?" he asked, trying to process the implications of what Lily had discovered. "Sure. But you won't be mad at me for going up to the attic alone, will you? Mary always says it's dangerous because of the old stairs," Lily asked, biting her lower lip with concern. "I won't be mad, I promise. But let's go up together now, okay? And next time you want to explore somewhere in the house, call me first," David negotiated, already getting up from the table. The attic of the mansion was accessed by a wooden staircase that creaked with every step, reminding David of how Sarah used to go up there to organize Christmas decorations or look for old photo albums. The space smelled of old wood and stored memories, with beams of sunlight streaming through small round windows, creating golden rays filled with dancing dust. Lily led him through furniture covered with white sheets, boxes labelled in Sarah's elegant handwriting, and trunks that held treasures of a shared life. At the back of the attic, near a window that offered a panoramic view of Park Avenue, there was an antique rosewood wardrobe that had belonged to Sarah's grandmother. "It's here," Lily pointed to a drawer at the bottom of the wardrobe. The box was hidden behind some old books. David carefully opened the drawer, his hands trembling slightly. There was a carved wooden box, decorated with floral motifs, that he immediately recognized. It was a wedding gift that Sarah had received from a distant aunt. Inside the box, organized chronologically, were sealed envelopes in Sarah's elegant handwriting. "For Lily, 9th birthday," read the first envelope. "For Lily, first period," said another. "For Lily, high school graduation. For Lily, 18th birthday. For Lily, wedding." They were life milestones that Sarah had anticipated, important moments she wanted to share with her daughter, even knowing she might not be there to experience them. Daddy, why are you crying? Lily asked, gently touching her father's face, where a tear had escaped. Because your mother loved you so much that she wanted to make sure she was present for all the important moments in your life, even not being here anymore, David explained, his voice thick with emotion. Lily picked up the envelope marked for her 9th birthday, which was still a few months away. Can I read this? Or do I have to wait until my birthday? David hesitated for a moment. The letters were a bridge between Sarah and Lily, but they could also contain information or feelings that an 8-year-old might not be ready to process. On the other hand, after their conversation the night before about honesty, he felt compelled to respect his daughter's autonomy. How about we read it together, he suggested. If there's something you don't understand or that makes you sad, we can talk about it. Lily nodded gravely and handed the envelope to her father to open. David carefully broke the wax seal, revealing 2 sheets of paper with Sarah's cursive handwriting written in navy blue ink, the same color she used to write in her diary. My dear Lily, David began to read aloud, if you are reading this letter, it means you have found my little hidden treasure. I hope your father is there with you, because some of the things I have to tell you are important for both of you. David stopped reading, feeling a premonition that this letter contained more than just loving birthday wishes. Sarah had chosen her words carefully, and the specific mention of important things for both of you suggested revelations that could change their understanding of the life they thought they knew. Continue, Dad, Lily encouraged, snuggling up next to him on the dusty floor of the attic, completely unaware of the magnitude of what she was about to discover. David continued reading, his voice wavering slightly as Sarah's words came to life in the silent attic. First, I want you to know that every day I spent being your mother was the greatest gift of my life. You brought light to places in me that I didn't even know existed, but there is a story about our family that I never told, not even to your father, because it was a very old pain that I carried alone. David felt a chill run down his spine. In 15 years of marriage, he had learned to read between the lines of Sarah's silences, but he never imagined she held such significant secrets. Lily remained quiet beside him, her eyes fixed on the paper as if she could see her mother through the words. When I was 16, before I met your father, I had a twin sister. We were separated when we were very young due to painful circumstances our family faced. My parents, your grandparents whom you never met, went through terrible financial hardships, and the hardest decision of our lives was made, to give my sister Anna up for adoption. An aunt, Lily exclaimed, interrupting the reading. I have an aunt I never met. David was in shock. Sarah had superficially mentioned her difficult childhood, but always in vague terms. He knew she had grown up in a humble family in the countryside of New York, that she had lost her parents young, but he never suspected there was a sister, let alone a twin sister, who had been given up for adoption. Let Dad finish reading, Lily, he said softly, his own curiosity and confusion growing with each word. Anna was adopted by an Italian family in Springfield, the Benedettis. I have always carried the guilt of having stayed with our biological mother while she was given to strangers. For years, I wondered what her life would be like, if she was happy, if she remembered me. When I turned 18, I hired a private investigator to find her. David stopped reading, processing the enormity of this revelation. Sarah had hired a private investigator. How did he not know any of this? They shared practically everything, or at least that's what he believed. What I discovered filled me with joy and remorse at the same time. Anna became a pediatrician specializing in caring for children in vulnerable situations. She built a beautiful life, but also carried wounds from the separation. We began to correspond secretly about 12 years ago. 12 years, David murmured to himself. This meant that Sarah had been in contact with this sister since before Lily was born, throughout the entire pregnancy, through the early years of their daughter's life. How had she managed to keep this a secret for so long? Lily tugged at her father's shirt sleeve. "Dad, does this mean my Aunt Anna is a children's doctor? Like the doctors who took care of me when I had pneumonia?" "Yes, sweetheart. A pediatrician is a children's doctor," David confirmed, continuing to read with growing apprehension about what else they would discover. "I know you must be wondering why I kept this secret for so long. The truth is that Anna and I had planned to meet in person when Lily turned 10. We wanted her to be old enough to understand the story of our family. We also planned for David to meet Anna at a family gathering I organized for next Christmas." David's hands trembled. Sarah had planned a family gathering that would include this mysterious sister, and he had no idea. How many other plans had she made? How many other aspects of her life remained unknown to him? "Anna lives at 847 Americo Brasiliense Street in Springfield. Her phone number is 16-3941-2847. She works at the Hospital of Clinics and has a private practice in the southern part of the city. I wrote letters to her all these years, telling her about Lily, sending photos, sharing every milestone in our daughter's growth." Lily jumped up from where she was sitting. "Dad, can we call her now? Can I talk to my Aunt Anna on the phone?" David was struggling to process the information. Part of him felt betrayed. How could Sarah maintain such a significant relationship in secret? Another part felt guilty. Perhaps he hadn't created an environment where Sarah felt safe to share this painful story about her childhood. "Calm down, Lily. Let's finish reading the letter first," he asked, realizing that his own emotions were in turmoil. "There's one last thing I need to tell you, and this is especially for you, David. For the past 3 years, I have been investing in charity, stocks related to the care of orphaned children. Anna inspired me with her work at the hospital, and I wanted to honor our family story by doing something positive for children who, like her, needed to be separated from their biological families." David stopped breathing. Sarah had made charitable investments? With what money? Where had these resources come from? "There is a bank account at Bank of America, branch 1847, account 8924567, where I deposited a monthly amount I managed to save from the household budget and from some discreet consulting work I did in decoration. The current balance should be around $380,000. $380,000, David murmured incredulously. Sarah had managed to save that amount without him noticing? How? He meticulously controlled all the family finances, or at least he thought he did. "My dream was to use this money to open an artistic foundation for children in vulnerable social situations. I wanted Lily to grow up knowing the importance of helping others, especially children who need love and opportunities. If something happens to me before I can realize this dream, I hope you will consider continuing this project." Lily paced back and forth in the basement like a miniature adult trying to process complex information. "Daddy, does this mean that Mommy wanted to help children who don't have families, like a special school for them?" "Something like that, Princess," David replied. But his mind was racing in different directions. The company was facing severe financial difficulties due to the risky investments he had made during his uncontrolled grieving period. $380,000 wouldn't solve all the problems, but it could be a significant relief. On the other hand, using the money that Sarah had earmarked for charity to save his business felt like a betrayal of her memory. "There's one more letter here," Lily pointed to the bottom of the box. "This one doesn't have a date written on it. It just says, 'For David and Lily, when you find the letters.'" David took the envelope with trembling hands. This letter had been written specifically for the current moment, as if Sarah had foreseen that her revelations would cause confusion and would need further explanations. "I know you must be feeling confused, and maybe even betrayed by my keeping these secrets. David, my love, you have always been so protective, so careful to solve all the problems on your own, that I feared if you knew about Anna, you would try to fix our family story in a way that might not feel natural. Anna and I needed to find our own pace of reconciliation." David felt a pang of recognition. Sarah knew him deeply. He really would have tried to orchestrate a meeting, planning every detail to ensure everything went perfectly, possibly trampling the delicate emotional process that the sisters needed to experience. "As for the money, I saved every dollar thinking about Lily's future, but also thinking about you. David, I knew your tendency to take risks in business could eventually put our family in trouble. This money is insurance, a safety net that can be used if you really need it, even if it's not for charity." "Did Mommy know that you sometimes do risky things with money?" Lily asked with the typical frankness of children. David blushed slightly. Sarah really knew him better than he imagined. His aggressive business strategies, his overconfidence in large investments, his tendency to bet big, she had observed all of this and had quietly created a safety net for the family. "Your mother was very smart and careful," David admitted to Lily, feeling simultaneously grateful and humbled by Sarah's foresight. The basement remained silent for a few minutes, only the sound of Mary's footsteps downstairs and the distant chirping of birds in the garden. Father and daughter were absorbing the magnitude of the revelations they had uncovered, each processing the implications in different ways. "Daddy," Lily finally broke the silence, "can we meet Aunt Anna? And can we do the special school for children that Mommy wanted to do?" David looked at his daughter's hopeful little face, saw the determination inherited from Sarah, shining in her brown eyes, and realized that those letters were not just revelations about the past, they were a roadmap for the future that Sarah had carefully charted for them. The following Monday, David cancelled all his morning meetings, a decision that left his secretary, Marcia, visibly perplexed. In 15 years of working for him, she had rarely seen him alter his rigorously structured schedule, much less for personal matters. Sitting in his office on the 23rd floor of the commercial building in Faria Lima, with a panoramic view of the bustling city below, David held a small card where he had written Anna Benedetti's phone number. The office perfectly reflected his personality: straight lines, neutral colors, minimalist and functional decor. Abstract paintings in shades of grey adorned the walls, while his tempered glass desk remained impeccably organized. Everything conveyed control, efficiency, and success, exactly the image he had cultivated over the years. But at that moment, holding a simple piece of paper, all that structure felt as fragile as crystal. It was already the 4th time he dialed the number and hung up before the call completed. How does one start a conversation with someone who should have been part of the family for years but is completely unknown? What does one say to the twin sister of a deceased wife, especially when that sister doesn't know that Sarah has died? Finally, taking a deep breath, David completed the call. The phone rang 3 times before a feminine voice answered, and the impact was immediate. It was Sarah's voice, but not exactly. The same soft tone, the same measured cadence, but with a slightly rural accent that Sarah had lost after years of living in New York. "Dr. Anna Benedetti, good morning." The voice on the other end sounded professional yet warm. "Dr. Anna, my name is David Johnson. I was married to Sarah Johnson," David began, his voice faltering slightly on the word was. There was a prolonged silence on the other end, so intense that David could hear his own breathing and the distant hum of hospital machines in the background. "David?" Anna's voice came out in a whisper heavy with emotion. "Sarah told me so much about you. But why are you calling? Did something happen? Is she okay? David's heart broke as he realized that Anna still didn't know. In Sarah's last months of life, when the illness rapidly intensified, she likely didn't have the strength to maintain regular correspondence with her sister. Anna had gone over a year without knowing that her twin sister was dying. "Anna, I need to tell you something very difficult," David began, carefully choosing each word. "Sarah passed away 13 months ago. She had ovarian cancer that progressed very quickly." The silence that followed was absolute. David could imagine Anna processing the information, trying to comprehend that her sister, with whom she had reconciled after years of estrangement, was gone. Separation. She had been dead for over a year and she didn't even know it. "No, it can't be true." Anna's voice trembled, and David could hear that she was starting to cry. "She wrote to me in December last year, saying she was fine, that Lily was growing up beautifully. How could she be sick and not tell me?" Sarah didn't want to worry anyone until she was sure of the diagnosis. "When we found out, she still had hope of recovering in time to fulfill the plans she made for you to meet," David explained, feeling tears in his own eyes. "She died in peace, Anna. In her last days, she talked a lot about you." Anna was openly sobbing now, and David stayed on the line, respecting her pain. It was strange to comfort someone he had never met, but who shared with him the loss of the same loved one. In a way, they were united by Sarah even in her absence. "And Lily?" Anna asked after a few minutes, trying to compose her voice. "How is my niece? Does she know about me?" It was Lily who found the letters that Sarah had hidden. "We discovered your existence only this past weekend," David explained. "She is eager to meet you if you want to meet her too." "Of course I want to," Anna replied immediately, her voice gaining renewed strength. "Sarah sent me pictures of her, told me about every achievement, every new word she learned. I feel like I already know her, but David, why are you calling me now? Not that I'm not grateful, but—" David hesitated. How to explain that he had spent over a year avoiding everything that reminded him of Sarah, including secrets she had shared. How to admit that he had been emotionally absent as a father, and that only now was he beginning to understand his daughter's needs. "Because Lily deserves to know her family," he replied, choosing a partial truth. "And because Sarah clearly wanted you to meet. I made the mistake of shutting myself off after her death, but now I'm trying to honor the wishes she left behind. Can you come to Springfield? Or I can go to New York. I can take a leave from the hospital," Anna offered, her enthusiasm growing despite the pain of the news about Sarah. "I have so many pictures to show Lily, so many stories about her mother when we were kids." Actually, David made an impulsive decision. "How about we go today? Lily doesn't have school because of a holiday, and I can reschedule my appointments. We could have lunch together." "Today?" Anna seemed surprised, but then her voice filled with determination. "Yes, today would be perfect. I can cancel my afternoon appointments. Do you know Springfield?" "I've never been there, but it shouldn't be hard to find," David replied, already mentally reorganizing his entire day. "I live in a house on Americo Brasiliense Street, number 847. It's a yellow house with a front garden, full of roses. You can't miss it," Anna explained quickly. "David, thank you for calling. I know it must have been hard." After hanging up the phone, David sat for a few minutes, watching the hustle and bustle of the city below. People hurried along the sidewalks, cars navigating through heavy traffic, buildings rising on the horizon, a whole life pulsating while he had spent over a year practically frozen in time. He called home and asked Mary to explain to Lily that they would be taking a special trip that afternoon. The excitement in the girl's voice, even filtered through Mary, was contagious. "The little one almost jumped to the ceiling when she found out," Mary reported, laughing. "She's already choosing what dress she'll wear to meet her aunt. She wants to take her photo album to show. On the way back home, David stopped at a flower shop and bought a bouquet of white roses, the same ones Sarah cultivated in her garden and that had always been her favorite flowers. It would be a gift from Sarah, through him, to the sister she had loved so much and would never see again. Lily was waiting at the door of the mansion when he arrived, wearing a navy blue dress with white lace details, the same one she had worn on the last birthday they spent with Sarah. Her hair was carefully styled by Mary, with a blue ribbon matching the dress. "Dad, I'm nervous and excited at the same time," she confessed, hugging his legs. "What if Aunt Anna doesn't like me? What if I don't know what to say?" "Lily, your Aunt Anna already loves you even before meeting you in person," David assured, kneeling to be at his daughter's height. "And you'll know exactly what to say because you are Sarah's daughter. You two have so much in common." Mary appeared carrying a bag with snacks for the trip and a carefully prepared package. "It's cornbread with jelly, my mother's recipe that Mrs. Sarah loved," she explained. "I thought it would be a nice gift for Dr. Anna." As they headed to the car, David realized that for the first time in over a year, he was genuinely anxious about something that wasn't related to business or problems to solve. It was a good anxiety, filled with expectation and hope. The trip to Springfield would take about 4 hours, enough time for him and Lily to talk about what they expected from this meeting, and for her to process a little more the revelations about the family she didn't even know she had. Interstate 70 stretched out before them like an asphalt ribbon, cutting through the heartland, flanked by cornfields that disappeared into the horizon under the strong afternoon sun. David drove the Tesla Model X at a steady speed, while Lily chatted in the back seat, alternating between questions about Aunt Anna and observations about the rural landscape passing by the ticket window. "Dad, do you think Aunt Anna has the same voice as Mom? In the photos we found in the basement, they looked just alike when they were little," Lily asked, once again, firmly holding the family photo album she had insisted on bringing. "On the phone, her voice sounds a lot like Mom's," David replied, adjusting the rearview mirror to observe his daughter. Lily was visibly nervous, swinging her legs and nibbling on her lower lip, a habit she had inherited from Sarah. "But remember, Princess, twins can look alike physically, but have completely different personalities." As they approached Springfield, David felt a strange mix of anxiety and guilt. Why had Sarah felt compelled to keep this relationship a secret? Had he been so controlling, so absorbed in his own projects, that she didn't feel free to share important aspects of her life? Anna's house was in a quiet residential neighborhood, with wide streets shaded by maple trees and houses with traditional architecture. The light yellow house at 847 Maple Street had white windows and a lush front garden, just as Anna had described. Roses of various colors created a fragrant mosaic that immediately reminded him of the garden that Sarah had loved so much. Before David even turned off the engine, the front door opened and a woman appeared on the porch. The visual impact was devastating. It was like seeing Sarah walking toward them. The same height, the same elegant stature, the same wavy brown hair, now tied back in a practical ponytail. Only the clothes were different. Anna wore a simple white blouse and jeans, contrasting with the more elaborate style that Sarah preferred. Lily jumped out of the car, running as if all her nervousness had evaporated instantly. "Aunt Anna! Aunt Anna!" she shouted, crossing the small iron gate and running toward the woman who stood frozen, hands covering her mouth in shock. Anna knelt down as Lily approached, opening her arms to embrace her niece. The meeting was intense and emotional. Two people who only knew each other through letters and photographs finally touching, smelling each other, confirming they were real. "Oh my God, you're even more beautiful than in the pictures," Anna murmured, stepping back slightly to examine Lily's face. "You have Sarah's eyes, but your face shape is from your dad." David approached more slowly, carrying the bouquet of white roses and feeling like an intruder in this intimate moment. When Anna looked up at him, it was like looking directly at Sarah, the same expressive brown eyes, the same way of tilting her head slightly when she was emotional. "David," Anna stood up and walked toward him, extending her hands. "Thank you for bringing Lily. I know it must have been difficult to make this trip." When she hugged him, David felt the soft scent of lavender emanating from her hair, completely different from the Dior J'adore that Sarah always wore. It was a subtle reminder that, despite the striking physical resemblance, Anna was her own person with her own characteristics. "These are for you," David offered the bouquet of roses. "Sarah always said that white roses symbolize new beginnings." Anna accepted the flowers with tears in her eyes. "She planted roses like these in my garden when we reconciled. I'll show you." Anna's house was cozy and functional, decorated with simple but well-kept furniture. The walls were covered with photographs, some of Sarah that David recognized, others of smiling little patients in her arms, and many of a life that Anna had built on her own over the years. Medical books shared space with novels, on makeshift shelves, and plants hung from hooks in the ceiling, creating an environment that breathed life and care. "Lily, would you like to see the room I prepared for when your mom came to visit me?" Anna asked, taking her niece's hand. "I always hoped that one day you both could spend a weekend here." The room was small, but decorated with love. A twin bed with a floral quilt, a nightstand with a picture of Sarah smiling, and on the wall, children's drawings that Anna had received by mail over the years, gifts from Lily, mediated by Sarah without the girl knowing. "These drawings are mine," Lily exclaimed, recognizing her own artwork. "Mom said she would keep them, but she actually sent them to you." "Your mom wanted me to see how talented you were growing up," Anna explained, kneeling again to be at Lily's level. "She told me about each drawing, about the stories you invented to go along with them." David watched the interaction between the two, noticing how Anna naturally communicated with Lily. There was something in her way of speaking, patient, genuinely interested, unhurried, that reminded him of the best qualities of Sarah as a mother, but also brought something new, likely developed through years of caring for children in hospital settings. "Aunt Anna, can you tell me what Mum was like when she was little?" Lily asked, sitting on the bed and pulling Anna to sit beside her. "Oh, your mum was an amazing child," Anna began, her eyes shining with old memories. "She was always the bravest of us two. When we were little and lived with our biological mother, Sarah always protected me when other kids teased us for being too skinny, or when we didn't have nice clothes like the others." David sat down in a nearby armchair, realizing he was about to learn aspects of Sarah's childhood that she had never shared with him. This was an opportunity not only for Lily to meet her aunt, but for him to better understand the woman he had been married to for 15 years. "Our mother worked as a housekeeper in several homes during the day, and at night she cleaned offices. She was always tired, always worried about money," Anna continued, her voice taking on a melancholic tone. "Sarah used to make up fantastic stories to distract me when I cried from hunger or fear. She said that we were princesses in disguise, and one day our true castle would appear." "Just like the stories she told me," Lily interrupted, excited by the connection. "When our mother decided she needed to give one of us up for adoption, Sarah insisted that I be the one chosen because she thought I was more fragile, that I needed a stable family more," Anna revealed, and David could see tears forming in her eyes. "Until the very last moment she was trying to protect me, even though I was just a child." David felt a pang in his chest, imagining Sarah as a child, already showing the generosity and protective instinct that would characterize her for the rest of her life. He also understood better why she had been so reserved about her childhood. Those memories carried pain and guilt that she had probably taken years to process. "But you found each other again when you grew up, right, Aunt Anna?" Lily asked, sensing the sadness in the tone of the conversation and wanting to steer it towards something more positive. "Yes, dear. Your mother found me when I was finishing medical school. It was she who sought me out, who insisted on rebuilding our relationship." Anna smiled through her tears. "The first letter she wrote to me said, 'Anna, I never stopped missing you. Can you forgive me for not fighting harder for us to be together?'" "And did you forgive her?" Lily asked with the typical frankness of children. "I forgave her right away," Anna replied, hugging her niece, "because I understood that Sarah carried a guilt that she should never have had to bear. We were just children in an impossible situation." David observed this emotional exchange, realizing how Anna managed to address difficult topics in a way that Lily could understand without being frightened. It was a skill he himself was still learning to develop. "Aunt Anna," Lily hesitated for a moment, then asked, "You're a doctor for sick children, right? Mommy was sick before she died. Why couldn't the doctors save her?" The question caught Anna off guard, but she answered with the loving honesty that characterized her profession. "Sometimes, Lily, even with all the medicine and all the love in the world, we can't cure every illness. That doesn't mean the doctors didn't try, or that your mother didn't fight hard to be with you. But you save other children, right?" Lily continued, processing the explanation. "Yes, I help many children get better. And do you know why?" Anna smiled. "Because every time I take care of a child, I remember my sister Sarah taking care of me when we were little. She taught me that caring for those we love is one of the most important things we can do." David realized at that moment that Anna was not just an extension of Sarah. She was a complete person, shaped by the experience of separation and reunion, who had transformed her pain into a life purpose through pediatric medicine. The late afternoon in Springfield unfolded in a golden serenity, with the last rays of sun filtering through the foliage of Anna's garden. Lily played in the yard, collecting fallen rose petals to make what she called princess perfume, while David and Anna sat on the wooden porch, watching the girl and trying to process the emotional intensity of the meeting. "She is exactly how Sarah described her in the letters," Anna commented, pouring fresh coffee into simple porcelain cups decorated with small blue flowers. "Curious, loving, but with an impressive inner strength for a child who has gone through so much loss." David accepted the cup, noticing how Anna's hands were delicate and careful, hands of a doctor accustomed to precise and gentle gestures. "Anna, can I ask a question that might be intrusive? Why have you never married, never had children? Sarah always wondered about that in her letters." Anna chuckled softly, a melancholic sound that echoed on the porch. "The truth is that for years I was so focused on proving myself as a doctor, on building a solid career, that relationships ended up taking a back seat. And when I finally felt ready to start a family," she paused, watching Lily play, "I discovered I had severe endometriosis. The chances of getting pregnant naturally were almost non-existent." David felt a pang of understanding. "Sarah never mentioned that in her letters." "Because I asked her not to tell," Anna admitted. "It was a very recent pain when we reconnected. I had just received the diagnosis and was grappling with the idea that I might never be a biological mother. Knowing that Sarah had managed to have Lily was simultaneously a joy and a sharp pain." "And now? How do you cope with that?" David asked with genuine care. Anna watched Lily, who was now trying to teach tricks to a neighbor's cat that had jumped over the fence. "My patients have become my children in a way. Every child I help heal, every family I support during difficult times, it's my way of exercising the motherhood I couldn't have biologically." David understood at that moment why Sarah had felt such a strong connection with her sister after their reconciliation. They had both found ways to transform personal difficulties into fuel for caring for others. David, Anna hesitated, then continued, in the last letters I received from Sarah, before you discovered the illness, she seemed worried about you. She said you were working too hard, that she feared you didn't know how to take care of Lily alone if something happened to her. The observation hit David like a punch to the stomach. She was right, he admitted after a long pause. After she died, I threw myself into work even more intensely. I thought that if I could build even greater financial security for Lily, it would compensate for my emotional absence. And how is it now? Have you managed to find a balance? Anna asked, but her tone suggested she already knew the answer. David laughed bitterly. The company is struggling. Ironically, my strategy of working more to secure Lily's future Anna had put exactly that future at risk. Anna remained silent, allowing David to continue if he wished. I made some risky investments when I wasn't thinking clearly after Helena's death. I bet on ventures I thought would yield quick returns, but David gestured vaguely. Let's just say my business judgment wasn't at its best. Helena mentioned in her letters that she had created a financial reserve, Anna said carefully. Did you find any information about that? $380,000, David confirmed, intended for an artistic foundation for vulnerable children that she wanted to create. Enough to solve part of the company's problems, but... He paused, struggling with the moral dilemma. But using that money would be betraying her dreams, Anna completed, immediately understanding the conflict. Exactly. And at the same time, if I lose the company, how will I support Lily? How will I pay for private school, piano lessons, all the opportunities that Helena wanted her to have? Anna stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, watching Lily, who was now sitting under a cherry tree, drawing in a sketchbook she had brought in her bag. Can I tell you something about Helena that she may have never shared with you? Anna asked, still facing away from David. Sure. When she found me, I was going through a serious financial crisis. I'd gone into debt during my medical residency, and I was considering giving up my pediatric specialization to take a more lucrative job in general practice, Anna revealed. Helena, without telling, me sold some jewelry she had inherited from our grandmother and sent me the money anonymously. David leaned forward, intrigued. I only found out it was her years later, when I found the receipts among the papers she showed me. When I confronted her about it, do you know what she said? Anna turned to face David. Anna, I didn't donate money for you to continue studying. I invested in the future of hundreds of children you will heal throughout your career. The message was clear, and David picked it up immediately. She always thought long-term, Anna continued. That money she saved wasn't just set aside for abstract charity. It was saved to ensure that Lily had a father capable of caring for her, a stable family, a secure future. Using part of it to stabilize your financial situation isn't betrayal. It's exactly what Helena would have done if she were alive. David felt a profound relief and gratitude. Anna had just given him the permission he couldn't give himself. But what about the foundation, the work with underprivileged children? He asked. Anna smiled, walking back to her chair. Who said you need to choose between one or the other? Maybe the solution is exactly what Helena imagined, using part of the money to stabilize your financial situation and part to start the foundation. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Would you help me with that? With the foundation? David asked impulsively. I mean, you have experience with children. You know the real needs. Anna hesitated. David, I live here in Springfield. My medical practice, my patients are all here. How could I help with something in New York? Aunt Anna, look what I drew. Lily interrupted the conversation, running toward the porch with her sketchbook. The drawing showed three figures holding hands: a tall man, a small girl, and a woman with wavy hair. Above them, floating like an angel, was a fourth female figure with a radiant smile. "It's our new family," Lily proudly explained. "Daddy, me, Aunt Anna and Mommy taking care of all of us up in heaven." Anna and David exchanged glances, both deeply touched by the simplicity and wisdom of the drawing. Lily had resolved, with the typical naturalness of children, complex questions about belonging and family that adults were unnecessarily complicating. Lily, Anna knelt down again to be at the girl's height. "What if Aunt Anna visited you in New York from time to time? And what if you came here on weekends sometimes?" "Really? We can do that, Daddy?" Lily turned to David with eyes shining with hope. David looked at Anna, seeing in her not just the sister of his late wife, but a person who could bring to Lily's life something he knew he couldn't offer alone: a feminine perspective, a connection to Helena, an extension of family that his daughter clearly desired. "If Aunt Anna wants to, of course we can," David replied, and saw the smile spread across Anna's face, a smile identical to the one Helena used to have when something genuinely made her happy. "Then it's decided," Anna said, hugging Lily. "We'll be a real family, spread across 2 cities, but still a family." As the sun set over Springfield, David realized that for the first time since Helena's death, he didn't feel alone in the responsibility of raising Lily. More importantly, his daughter was radiant with a happiness he hadn't seen in over a year. The drive back to New York was filled with reflective serenity, with Lily sleeping in the back seat while hugging a teddy bear that Anna had given her, a light brown bear that Aunt Anna used to calm anxious children in the hospital. David drove in the dark, the highway lights creating luminous trails that seemed to guide him back to a reality that now appeared different from the one he had left that morning. It was almost 11 at night when they arrived in Park Avenue. Mrs. Smith appeared at the door even before David turned off the engine, as if she had been waiting by the living room window. Her attentive eyes immediately searched for signs of how the meeting had gone, and the relaxed smile that formed on her face indicated that she had picked up on the positive energy emanating. As he carried Lily, who was asleep, into the house, he asked softly, "So, how did it go?" "Transformative," David replied simply, but the word carried the weight of a complete emotional journey. "Mary, I need to talk to you tomorrow about some changes we need to make." Mary nodded, understanding from his tone that it was something important. She had worked for the family long enough to recognize when David was processing significant decisions. The next morning, while Lily was still asleep, David found Mary in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The housekeeper had woken up earlier than usual and was organizing ingredients to make homemade bread, a task she always did when she wanted to keep her hands busy while thinking. "Mary, please sit with me," David requested, pouring himself some coffee and gesturing to the chair next to the kitchen table. It was rare for him to sit in that setting, usually preferring to have coffee in the formal dining room. "Dr. David, has something happened with Mrs. Sarah's family?" Mary asked, her eyes showing the maternal concern that always characterized her. "On the contrary, something very good has happened," David smiled, and Mary realized it was the first genuine smile she had seen from him since Mrs. Sarah's passing. "Anna is an extraordinary person. Lily connected with her immediately, as if they had known each other for years." "Thank God," Mary sighed, relieved. "The little one needed that so much." "Mary, I need to tell you something that might change our dynamic here at home." David hesitated, carefully choosing his words. "Anna may start coming to New York regularly, and Lily and I will also spend some weekends in Springfield. Besides that," he paused, "I'm thinking about starting to work less, spending more time at home." Mary watched him closely. In all the years working for the family, She had never seen David consider reducing his workload. She knew something fundamental had changed in his perspective. "That's wonderful, Dr. David," she said warmly. "Lily will be over the moon with happiness. But may I ask, are you okay? You're not having health problems or—" "I'm fine, Mary. In fact, I'm better than I've been in a long time," David reassured her. "I'm just finally understanding what really matters." Mary nodded, but David noticed a shadow of concern in her eyes. "Is there something you want to tell me, Mary?" he encouraged. The housekeeper hesitated for a long moment, her hands clasped on the table as if silently praying. "Dr. David, I need to tell you something I've been keeping for a long time. About Dr. Anna." David's heart raced. "What about her?" "I knew Dr. Anna before yesterday," Mary confessed, avoiding David's gaze. "I knew her since she was a child." "What do you mean?" David leaned forward, completely surprised. Mary took a deep breath, as if preparing to reveal a secret she had carried for years. "Before I came to work here, I took care of an Italian family in Springfield, the Benedettis. Dr. Anna was adopted by them when she was 7 years old. David felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. "You took care of Anna when she was a child?" "I did, Dr. David. For 5 years, until she turned 12, and the family moved to a bigger house where they no longer needed a housekeeper," Mary explained, her words flowing with emotion. "Anna was a very sweet girl, but she carried a deep sadness from being separated from her twin sister." David was trying to process the implications of this revelation. "Mary, does this mean you knew about Anna's existence all those years you worked here? You knew that Sarah had a sister?" "I did, sir," Mary admitted, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "When I started working here, and Mrs. Sarah told me about her difficult childhood, about losing a sister, I quickly realized she was talking about Anna, the girl I had cared for." "Why didn't you ever say anything?" David asked, his voice heavy with confusion and a touch of betrayal. "Because Mrs. Sarah asked me not to speak," Mary replied quickly. "When she found out I knew Anna, she became very emotional, but she made me promise to keep it a secret until the right moment to reunite the family. She said she wanted to control how and when that reunion would happen." David ran his hands through his hair, trying to absorb the fact that practically his entire domestic staff had been involved in maintaining family secrets he was completely unaware of. "Mary, Sarah passed away over a year ago. Why didn't you tell me after she was gone?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Because you were suffering so much, Dr. David," Mary cried openly now. "You could hardly talk about Mrs. Sarah without becoming distraught. How could I come in and tell you that there was an entire family you didn't know about? And besides—" She hesitated. "Besides what?" "Anna asked me not to reveal our connection when Mrs. Sarah died. She thought it would be too confusing, that it might seem intrusive," Mary explained. "She wanted it to be natural when you met, without the complication of knowing I was a bridge between you." David stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at the garden where Lily used to play. He felt a mix of anger at the maintenance of these secrets and gratitude for the care both Sarah and Mary had shown in protecting the family. "Dr. David," Mary approached hesitantly, "I know you must be upset with me for keeping this secret. If you want me to look for another job—" "No, Mary," David turned, seeing the genuine anguish on her face. "I'm not upset with you. I'm trying to understand how Sarah managed to orchestrate this entire situation with such care, planning every detail, even knowing she might not live to see the outcome." "Mrs. Sarah was like that," Mary smiled through her tears, "always thinking ahead. How to protect the people I loved, always planning ways to ensure everyone was okay." "Mary, can I ask you something? Does Aunt Anna know that you work here, that you were the one who took care of her when she was a child?" "She does, sir. Just yesterday, after you all left, she called." "Me," Mary admitted. She was very emotional to know that I was taking care of Lily. She said she felt more at ease knowing there was someone she trusted looking after her niece. David laughed ironically. So yesterday, when we met Aunt Anna, it was basically a family reunion where everyone knew about secret connections, except for me and Lily. It was kind of like that, Mary agreed, embarrassed. At that moment, Lily appeared in the kitchen, still in her pajamas and with sleep-tousled hair, hugging the teddy bear Aunt Anna had given her. "Good morning, Daddy." "Good morning, Mary," she cheerfully greeted. "I dreamed about Aunt Anna all night. I dreamed that she was living here with us and that she made delicious pasta just like Grandma used to when I was little." David and Mary exchanged glances, both realizing that Lily had unconsciously verbalized something that was in everyone's subconscious, the desire for Aunt Anna to become a more constant presence in their lives. "Lily," David knelt down to be at his daughter's level, "how would you feel if Aunt Anna came to visit us more often, and if sometimes we spent weekends at her house?" "Really? Daddy, she can come whenever she wants." Lily jumped with excitement. "And I can show her my room and my drawings, and she can meet my friends from school." David realized at that moment that his daughter was not only craving a present father figure, but also an entire extended family that Helena had carefully prepared for her, even knowing that she might not be alive to facilitate those connections. "Then it's decided," David announced. "We'll call Aunt Anna and invite her to spend next weekend with us. And Mary," he turned to the housekeeper, "thank you for taking care of all these details, even when it was hard to keep secrets. Helena chose well whom to trust." Mary smiled, relieved, and Lily ran to hug both of them, creating a family circle that, although different from what any of them had imagined, felt just right. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting with Aunt Anna, and the Johnson family's home had gained a completely new energy. Aunt Anna had spent 2 weekends in New York, bringing not only her warm presence but also traditional Italian recipes she had learned from the Benedetti family, stories of her childhood shared with Helena, and a comforting medical perspective on the questions Lily still asked about her mother's death. On this Thursday in June, Lily was particularly excited, running around the house with a pad of paper full of drawings and plans. It was the eve of the summer festival at school, and the girl had come home with an idea that left David feeling both proud and worried. "Daddy, can I organize a summer festival here at home on Saturday?" Lily had asked during dinner, her eyes shining with determination. "I want to invite Aunt Anna, and Mary can make spiced cider and corn pudding, and we can hang up decorations in the garden." David was initially hesitant. The mansion in Park Avenue was not exactly the environment he associated with traditional summer festivals, and the idea of opening the house for celebrations made him anxious. Since Helena's death, they had hardly had any social visits. "Princess, a summer festival is a very informal celebration. Maybe it would be better for us to attend the one at your school," he suggested, trying to gently dissuade her. "But Daddy," Lily insisted with the affectionate stubbornness she inherited from Helena, "Mummy always said our house looked prettier when there were happy people inside it. And ever since Aunt Anna started coming here, I feel like the house is happier. A summer festival will bring even more joy." Mary, who had been listening to the conversation from the kitchen, approached with an encouraging smile. "Dr. David, if I may say, I think it would be wonderful. It's been so long since this house has had a real celebration." It was Aunt Anna who finally convinced David. During an afternoon call, which had become a daily routine for them so Lily could talk to her aunt, she offered a perspective he hadn't considered. "David, do you know why summer festivals are so important in American culture?" Aunt Anna had asked. "Because they celebrate harvest, gratitude, and community." Lily is unconsciously asking you to celebrate all the good things that are growing in your lives after a difficult time. Now, 2 days later, the mansion was being transformed into a completely different scene. Mary had taken charge of the organization with an energy that David hadn't seen in her for years, mobilizing her network of contacts, suppliers from the local market, artisans she had known since her time in Virginia, even some neighbors who had offered to help when they heard about the festival. "Dr. David, you need to see how the garden turned out," Mary called him from the living room door, her hands still dirty from planting small pots of corn and sunflowers she had bought to give the space a rural feel. David stepped out into the garden and stopped, impressed by the transformation. The space that usually displayed formal and sophisticated landscaping had gained colorful decorations hung between the trees, paper lanterns creating small islands of yellow light, and an improvised bonfire in a safe area near the ornamental pond. There were stalls made of wood and colorful fabric where traditional treats would be served, and even a small stage where Lily had insisted on organizing performances. "Mary, it's amazing," David admitted, feeling a wave of gratitude for the housekeeper's dedication. "How did you manage to organize all this so quickly?" "Oh, Dr. David, a summer festival is something that's in the blood of those who grew up in the countryside," she laughed, wiping her hands on the embroidered apron she wore. "And besides, when we do something out of love, things flow naturally." Lily came running down from the upstairs, wearing a red and white checkered dress that Aunt Anna had brought from Springfield, a typical summer festival dress that had belonged to a doll from her aunt's childhood, carefully adapted by a local seamstress. "Daddy, look how beautiful it is," she twirled, making the flared skirt open like a colorful umbrella. "What time is Aunt Anna coming?" "At 5 o'clock, David replied, checking the clock. "And she's bringing a surprise for you." "What surprise?" Lily asked, practically bouncing with curiosity. "If I tell you, it won't be a surprise anymore," David joked. But inside he was just as curious as his daughter. Anna had mentioned she would bring someone special to the party, but had refused to give more details. Around 4 in the afternoon, the first guests began to arrive. Lily's school friends and their parents, some neighbors whom David only knew superficially, and to his surprise, some families he didn't even know Mary had invited. "Mary, who are those people over there?" David asked discreetly, pointing to a middle-aged couple accompanied by 3 children who were playing excitedly with Lily. "They are Sophia's parents, a friend from Lily's school," Mary explained. "And those families over there are employees from the hospital where Dr. Anna works, who were coming to New York this weekend, and she suggested they stop by." David realized that, unbeknownst to him, his small summer festival had turned into a community celebration, involving people from different circles of their lives and Anna's life. It was a type of social event he had never imagined organizing, but it was creating an atmosphere of warmth that his home hadn't experienced in a long time. At exactly 5 o'clock, Anna arrived driving a rental car, but she wasn't alone. A tall man with grey hair and discreet glasses got out of the passenger seat carrying a guitar. He appeared to be around 50 years old, wearing a checkered shirt and jeans, and greeted Lily with the ease of someone accustomed to dealing with children. "Lily, this is Dr. Edward Johnson," Anna made the introductions while hugging her niece. "He's an engineer, works at a company that develops technologies for hospitals, but in his free time, he's a musician." Edward extended his hand to David with a genuine smile. "Nice to meet you. David, Anna has spoken a lot about you and Lily. I hope you don't mind my presence. Anna invited me when she learned there would be music at the party." "Of course I don't mind," David replied, shaking the man's hand and noticing how Anna smiled while observing the interaction. "You're very welcome. Lily was thrilled when she found out there would be live music." As Edward tuned the guitar and chatted with some children who gathered curiously around him, David pulled Anna aside to a more secluded corner of the garden. "Anna, can I ask a personal question? You and Edward," he began, but she interrupted him with an embarrassed smile. "We met at the hospital about 3 months ago," she explained. "He was implementing a new pediatric monitoring system and needed medical feedback. Edward lost his wife 2 years ago, also to cancer. We have a mutual understanding about certain pains." David nodded, fully understanding. There was something comforting in knowing that Anna was finding companionship and possibly love again, especially with someone who understood the complexity of rebuilding life after a significant loss. "I'm happy for you, Anna. Edward seems like a really good person." "He is," Anna confirmed, watching Edward teach Lily how to strum some strings on the guitar. "And you know what else? He has an interesting proposal for a tech partnership that could help with your company's issues." David raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "Edward has developed building management software that is revolutionary for the real estate market," Anna explained. "Systems that optimize energy, security, preventive maintenance, exactly the kind of innovation that can differentiate a construction company in today's market. He was looking for a partner in the real estate sector to test and implement the technologies." David felt a spark of hope. A tech partnership could be exactly the innovative solution his company needed to stand out from the competition and overcome the current crisis. "Do you think he would be interested in discussing this?" he asked. "Why don't you ask him yourself?" Anna suggested, pointing to Edward, who was now playing a soft tune while Lily sang along, drawing the attention of all the guests. As the evening progressed, the party took on a life of its own. The garden filled with the laughter of children running between the booths, adults chatting animatedly while enjoying spiced cider and corn pudding from Mary, and a sense of community that David hadn't experienced since childhood. Edward played traditional songs that made everyone sing along, and even David found himself participating in an improvised dance organized by Lily and her friends. "Daddy, this is the best party we've ever had in this house," Lily shouted over the music, her eyes shining with genuine happiness. David lifted her into his arms, spinning her around in the center of the garden lit by lanterns, and for the first time since Helena's death, he felt that his home was truly alive again. It was as if Lily had managed, with her childlike intuition, exactly what the family needed: celebration, community, and the feeling that the future could be built on joy, not just on the memory of loss. 6 months had passed since the summer festival that transformed the dynamics of the Johnson family. The autumn in New York painted the streets of Park Avenue with golden hues, and the house that once breathed melancholic silence now pulsed with renewed energy. David walked through the hallways, admiring the subtle but significant changes that had occurred. Recently, cheerful photographs of recent moments shared space with formal portraits from the past. Drawings by Lily decorated the refrigerator in the kitchen, and the aroma of Mary's coffee often mingled with the spices of the Italian recipes that Aunt Anna had taught during her weekends in New York. The business partnership with Edward had proven to be an extraordinary success. The building automation systems he developed not only saved David's company from financial crisis, but positioned it at the forefront of the sustainable real estate market. More importantly, the collaboration had allowed David to drastically reduce his workload, delegating operational responsibilities to focus on strategic vision and, most importantly, being present in Lily's life. On this Thursday in May, David was in his home office, a space he had created in a previously underused room. When Lily came running in, carrying an official envelope from school and a smile that lit up the entire room. "Daddy, Daddy, the letter about the art exhibition has arrived," she announced, practically bouncing with excitement. David set aside the documents from the Sarah Montenegro Foundation, which had been officially established 3 months prior, with part of the funds that his late wife had saved, focused on artistic programs for children in vulnerable situations, and gave his full attention to his daughter. "And what does the letter say, Princess?" he asked, although he already knew the content. The school principal had called the previous week to personally inform him that Lily had been selected to represent her class in a municipal children's art exhibition. "It says my drawings are going to be in a real gallery where other people can see them." Lily read carefully, still struggling with some more complex words. "And that I can invite my whole family to the opening." "And who do you want to invite?" David asked, pretending not to know the answer. "You, Aunt. Anna, Uncle Edward, Mary, and—" Lily hesitated for a moment. "I want to invite Mommy too, even if she can't be there in person. But she can be there in spirit, right, Daddy?" David felt that familiar tightness in his chest that still happened when Lily mentioned Sarah, but now it was tempered by a deep gratitude for the emotional maturity his daughter had developed. With Aunt Anna's help, who had discreetly suggested a few sessions with a child psychologist specializing in grief, Lily had learned to honor her mother's memory in a healthy way, integrating the loss into her life without it hindering her growth. "Of course, Mommy will be there in spirit," David confirmed, hugging his daughter. "She would be so proud to know that you are becoming such a talented artist." Lily's exhibition would be just one of the many activities filling their schedules in recent weeks. Aunt Anna had secured a partial transfer to New York General Hospital, maintaining her job in Springfield, but spending 3 days a week in the city. Edward had completely moved to New York, renting an apartment near the Johnsons' home, and his presence had become a comforting constant in everyone's lives. "Daddy, can I tell you a secret?" Lily asked, taking on that conspiratorial tone that always preceded her most insightful observations. "Any secret you want," David replied, as he always did. "I think Aunt Anna and Uncle Edward are going to get married," she whispered, as if revealing national security information. David laughed, not surprised by the observation. Lily had developed a keen intuition for relational dynamics, likely a result of having been so attuned to the emotional nuances of the adults around her during the period of grief and family rebuilding. "And how would you feel if that happened?" David asked, curious about his daughter's perspective. "I would be really happy," Lily replied without hesitation, "because Aunt Anna would be around us more, and Uncle Edward is really nice. He taught me how to play the guitar and always brings sweets from an Italian bakery he knows. And if they had babies, how would you feel about being a cousin to babies?" David continued exploring his daughter's feelings. Lily considered the question seriously for a few moments. "It would be nice to have babies in the family, but—" She paused. "They're not going to replace Mommy, right? Because Mommy will always be my mom, even if she's not here." David felt a wave of pride for Lily's emotional wisdom. "Never, Princess. No one will ever replace your mom. But our family can grow and have more people who love us, and that's a good thing." At that moment, Mary appeared at the office door with a mysterious smile. "Dr. David, Aunt Anna is arriving, and she said she has important news to share." Lily jumped out of her chair and ran to the window. "It's true, Daddy. Her car is coming, and Uncle Edward is with her." David felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. There had been clear signs in recent weeks that Anna and Edward were considering formalizing their relationship, and he suspected that the important news would have to do with that. Anna and Edward entered the house with radiant smiles, and Lily immediately ran to hug both of them. Anna looked particularly elegant, wearing a navy blue dress that accentuated her eyes, while Edward carried a bouquet of yellow roses, the flowers that Sarah used to grow in the garden. "We have news to share with you," Anna began, taking Edward's hand as they sat in the living room. Edward proposed to me yesterday, and I said yes. Lily screamed with joy and began to jump around the room. I knew it! I knew you were going to get married! David stood up and warmly hugged both of them. Congratulations! I couldn't be happier for you two. And there's more, Edward added, smiling at Lily. We want you to be our flower girl if you want. I want! Lily replied immediately, then paused with excitement. A thoughtful expression crossed her face. But can I ask a question? Of course, dear, Anna encouraged. Are you going to get married in a church? Because if you are, I would like to ask the priest to mention Mom too, so she knows she approves of her twin sister's wedding. Anna began to cry, tears of joy mixed with deep emotion at Lily's sensitivity. Of course we can do that, Lily. I think Sarah would be very happy to know that we found love again. And are you going to live nearby? Lily continued her practical questions. Actually, Edward smiled, Anna and I were thinking of buying a house in the neighborhood. That way we can be close to you, but you can also maintain your privacy. David noticed the delicacy of the decision. Anna and Edward had carefully considered how to integrate their lives with the Johnson family without invading space or drastically altering the dynamic that was working well. Mary, Lily shouted toward the kitchen, Aunt Anna is getting married. We're going to have to throw an even bigger party than the summer festival. Mary appeared, wiping her hands on her apron, her face lit up by a maternal smile. My goodness, what joy! Mrs. Sarah must be smiling down from heaven. As the afternoon went on, they planned the details of the wedding that would take place at the end of the year, discussed Lily's art exhibition the following week, and talked about the projects of the Sarah Johnson Foundation, which had begun serving its first beneficiary children. David, Anna said when they were alone for a few minutes in the garden, there's something I want to give you. She handed him a small, carefully wrapped package. Inside was a delicate heart-shaped pendant engraved with the initials S.J., Sarah Johnson. I found this among the things Sarah left me, Anna explained. She wanted Lily to wear it on her wedding day. I thought you should keep it until that moment comes. David held the pendant, feeling the symbolic weight of the object. It was further proof of how Sarah had carefully planned every aspect of the family's future, even knowing she would not be there to experience it. Anna, thank you, he said simply, for everything, for bringing Sarah back into our lives in a new way, for loving Lily as if she were your own daughter, for helping us build a family that she would be proud of. Thank you, David, Anna replied, gently touching his arm. For allowing me to be part of this family, for honoring Sarah's memory in the most beautiful way possible, creating a life full of love and joy. As they watched Lily and Edward in the garden, she teaching him how to care for the rose bushes that Sarah had planted, David realized that his family had become something he could never have imagined or planned. It was a family built on loss and recovery, on revealed secrets and shared truths, on the human capacity to find light even in the darkest times. The whispering prayer of an 8-year-old girl on a lonely night had indeed transformed an empire, not a business empire built on control and ambition, but a family empire based on love, authenticity, and the deep understanding that the most valuable human connections often emerge from moments of greatest vulnerability. Lily ran toward them, holding a drawing she had just finished, a portrait of the new extended family gathered in the garden, with Sarah gently floating above them all, her arms open in an eternal blessing. It was the perfect visual representation of how a child had achieved something no adult alone could have accomplished, transforming grief into celebration, solitude into community, and memory into living hope.